So this book came out recently by Alex Marlow. I was reading the article on Breitbart about some of Joe Biden's his life, because most people know that he lost his first wife and 2 daughters in a car wreck. So to understand how the psychopathy, being a psychopath, because it's really, he is. He has no remorse. I mean, just look at if the border can't tell you that, if pushing transgenderism on children and him encouraging parents to support that for their children, it doesn't, I mean, there's so many, not wanting to ever take accountability. So I'm just going to read a little bit and show some pictures that were in this article from way back in the day, the Wayback Machine. So it's Alex Marlow's the author of Breaking Biden. Joe Biden covered for brother Frank. He covered for his brother Frank after he was involved in a fatal hit-and-run car crash. So this is Nelia, Joe Biden's first wife. So it says here, during the course of this author's research for Breaking Biden, there were only a few moments that humanized the current president. Though I tried to locate the humanity in Joe Biden time and again, I was shocked at how infrequently I was able to do that. I concluded that a key reason Joe Biden had a do not give a fuck attitude is that he has faced personal tragedy so acute that it's hardly a surprise that being the subject of online ridicule doesn't faze him. The first of those tragedies took place on December 18th, 1972, when his wife, Nelia Hunter Biden, age 30, and their infant daughter, Naomi, were killed in a car crash when their station wagon collided with a hay truck while they were out shopping for Christmas presents. His 2 young sons, Hunter and Beau, were badly injured in the accident, requiring extended hospitalization, but survived. As it would have any human, the accident took an incalculable toll on Joe. The country wept for Joe. That's the car, the remains of it. Yet there was one incident I came across during research for the book where Joe had the opportunity to show empathy for a family that suffered the same fate as he did all those decades ago, but instead he decided to cover for one of his corrupt brothers. I document several instances in the book of where Frank Biden used his connection to his famous and powerful money to make ill-gotten cash, but the most shocking Frank Biden story involved a hit-and-run crash. In July 1999, Frank Biden let a young friend named Jason Turton drive his Jaguar to a concert at a tavern in Cardiff, California. Frank's Florida driving license had been suspended, so he rode shotgun during the trip, controlling the stick shift himself while giving Turton the instructions. At one point, they had the Jaguar humming along at 70 miles per hour in a 35-mile zone when they slammed into a pedestrian crossing the street. They drove off, leaving the victim to die at the scene. 2 witnesses who were in the back seat during the crash claimed that Frank Biden told Turton to keep driving after the fatal collision. The victim, Michael Albano, was a single father whose death left behind 2 young daughters. This is the newspaper clipping. Yeah. So, suffered injuries from being hit, obviously, by the automobile. Then there's this. Obviously, it's a news clipping from Oceanside, California, a memorial. So the driver, Turton, eventually pleaded guilty to felony hit-and-run charges while Frank was hit with a wrongful death lawsuit in August 2000 by the guardians of the Albano daughters. Frank never showed up to the courthouse for any hearings. and he refused to reply to any legal correspondence from the court, including a court final judgment in September 2002 that Frank owed each of the girls $275,000 for his role in the tragedy. And that's actually not that much considering how much the Bidens have, you know? The Albano girls eventually hired a private investigator to track down where Frank was, where he was hiding, so he could accept service of documents. Investigators said they had received information that Frank occasionally lived at his brother Joe's house in Delaware, but they were unable to locate a bank account for Frank, who had become evasive. 8 years later, 2008, attorneys for the Albano sisters reached out to the soon-to-be Vice President Joe Biden in the hopes that he could help them collect the money from Frank that owed them. Even though Joe Biden's own wife and daughter were killed in an automobile accident, he seemed to show no sympathy for the Albanos and did not respond to them. Biden's chief of staff replied callously, "Senator Biden has received your letter of September 16th regarding a judgment by your clients against his brother Frank. The senator wishes to express his deep sympathy with the Albano daughters over their loss. Frank has no assets with which to satisfy the judgment. The senator regrets that this is where the matter stands and that he cannot be more helpful." Yeah, that is callous. Joe's team covered for Frank even when it meant denying orphaned girls what was rightfully theirs. So then somebody else believes that Joe Biden was being dishonest about Frank's ability to compensate the victims. Frank Biden was earning money. He reported, the name is Schweitzer. Indeed, 7 days before Joe Biden's office sent that letter, his brother was slapped with a tax lien from the IRS for $23 million in unpaid taxes. Not $23 million. 23,000. That's in total. Oh, actually, it says here, too, with interest, Frank owed them a debt of $900,000 in 2019. Less than a year after Schweitzer published the aforementioned letter, the Daily Mail reported that after 2 decades, Frank Biden had finally agreed to pay, after 2 decades, some of the money. Meanwhile, as he avoided this particular financial obligation, Frank was out hustling using his family's name through Joe's vice presidency. For example, Frank was a deal maker in several complex international real estate development schemes in Costa Rica and Jamaica. The whole family is. It's a crime family. It's also documented in the book, a charter school company that Frank oversaw that bagged federal grants. It failed students, but Frank has enough in his coffers to fly around in private jets promoting this school. Yeah, so he used the Biden last name. This is the book, and this is Frank Biden. They're all a crime family. The dog, which I just posted about Commander, his dog, his German Shepherd, that's the second dog he's had that was biting Secret Service agents. And really what that says is that's usually a dog that's going to do that. They're a reflection of what their owner does. Like, really. Like, I've seen that. Like, I mean, personally, I've seen it. Where, like, they're abusive to the animal. That's what it is. But the animal's loyal to the person, you know, that's feeding them, obviously. It's just like what happens to... It's like Biden was probably training the dog, to, you know, like these jagoffs that, you know, put dogs in fights. Yeah, that kind of stuff. Like Michael Vick, the old football player that had all those pets that he had in dog fights and was training them to be nasty. Yeah, because the Commander bit 12 Secret Service agents, and he was the second dog they had. That's what tells you everything you need to know about Biden.